All right, everyone. Hello and welcome into today's discussion where we're going to be taking a look at the NFL draft and how it pertains to the Minnesota Vikings going into this offseason. Now, I know what you're all thinking. It's way, way too early to be thinking about the NFL draft, but I think it's kind of important going into an offseason where we're discussing completely gutting one side of the football, i.e. the defense. We need to find a lot of new players to play on this unit because it was super dreadful last year. Interesting tidbit, I believe I saw a statistic today that said that the Minnesota Vikings defense this season only gave up one more point under Ed Donatel than they did under Mike Zimmer the previous season. So I'm starting to think it's less about scheme and more about coaching and even more about execution, i.e. the players. So we have a lot to look forward to in terms of turnover on the defensive side of the ball for the Minnesota Vikings. And what better topic to sort of segue into than the NFL draft? And as I said, it's very early, but I think the path to the draft starts right now for the Minnesota Vikings. They really got to start planning for this upcoming NFL draft for a number of reasons. There are several layers to this, which is a phrase I need to stop saying in all of my videos, if I could put it that way. So I'm somewhat of a draft aficionado. If you go to my page or you go to my channel, click through to the channel, go to the playlists, and you will see a couple draft playlists from previous seasons. I'm actually wearing the NFL draft hat for the Minnesota Vikings for last year's draft. I have the one the previous year hanging up here on the wall, if I could point to it correctly. This is the draft hat from the 2021 draft. And then somewhere here, I have the draft hat from 2020. So 3 straight years of Vikings drafts hat. Very, very into the NFL draft, doing mocks, reading write-ups from some of the people that do it the best in the professional world. So let's talk about the draft in the Minnesota Vikings, because as of right now, I think the main concern is just their lack of draft capital in general. They only have 4 picks. I do believe that they're going to get a 5th selection once the NFL releases the compensatory selection. So we're going to get a compensatory pick because we lost Tyler Conklin in free agency last year. I don't know what round that'll be. I can't imagine it's going to be very high, but they will get a 5th pick. They don't pick until the 23rd. Technically the 24th, because Miami forfeited their first round pick this year because of shenanigans. So technically it's the 23rd overall pick. There will not be 32 picks in the first round this year. So they're picking in the back half of the first round. They don't have a second round pick because they traded that for TJ Hawkinson midseason, which I'm fine with. But, you know, for a team that needs to rebuild a lot of its personnel, especially on one side of the ball, second round pick is where you find a lot of quality talent. So it remains to be seen what they're going to do about that. Now, Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah was asked about this briefly in the season wrap-up press conference with Kevin O'Connell, and he suggested or implied that there's always ways to get more draft picks if need be, and he is correct. So, but that, you know, raises the question, is this draft class this year with this group coming out, is it worth trying to acquire more picks, or is it worth trading up in the first round this year? I'm not so sure. I keep looking at the talent in this class, and I feel like there's a big drop-off after about the 8th, 9th, or 10th pick. I feel like if you don't have a top 10 pick this year, you're not getting a blue chip prospect compared to previous seasons where it's like up and down the first round, there's blue chippers all over the place. So last year, the 2020 draft, I mean, we got Justin Jefferson at what, 22 overall? Harrison Smith was a pick between 20 and 25. I don't remember exactly where he was selected, but he landed in that zone. Good players can be had at the end of the draft. I just don't know if there's any of them this year, especially if we want one of the top shelf corners. I think you're going to have to be in the top 10, maybe even the top 15 to a degree, to get one of the top corners in the draft. So that raises the question: should the Vikings trade back in the first round this year? Normally, I've been opposed to that, especially when they had the top pick in the draft last year, Kyle Hamilton, right there staring them right in the face, and then they trade all the way back with Detroit for Lewis Cine, which, again, that's kind of a wash because we don't know what Lewis Cine is going to be after missing all of this season due to injury, or at least most of it. I've been opposed to trading back in the first round in the past, but maybe this year it's not a bad idea, because honestly, if you trade back in the first round and stay in the first round, I'm not advocating to move out of it, because I really like having rookies on that rookie deal that have a fifth-year option, I'm not advocating trading out of it. But, what's the difference between pick 23 and pick 28, especially in this draft where I think there's a big talent drop-off. So maybe it's not a bad idea, trade back, get a later second-round pick, or maybe get another third and use that to package to move up to get back in the second round towards the end. So there's definitely many, many ways that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah can manipulate this in his favor, but I want your guys' opinion. Let me know what you think. Would it be wiser this year to trade back in the first round just due to the overall talent? Or is there a couple of players realistically? Now, let's operate in reality here. We're not obviously going to be able to get into the top 10 or maybe not even the top 15. We just don't have enough draft capital to pull that off. We'd be surrendering picks far into the future to be able to do that. Although maybe that's something that we should consider. If you have a good argument to make, let me know in the comments below. Fight for that argument. I don't think that that's just feasible. At this point in this juncture, I don't see a player that's really worth it that's going to make a difference for them. There's no top shelf players that you're going to be able to get unless you have like a top 6 or 7 player or top 6 or 7 pick, as I've said already. I just don't know if that's feasible. Another thing that you could do potentially, and I'm not advocating for this either, is you could trade one of our superstars. Now, Kirk Cousins has a no trade clause. I don't think that that's going to happen. Danielle Hunter, that's potentially a trading, a bargaining chip, if you will, somebody that you could trade for a first round talent because he's still an elite athlete. Maybe it didn't show up in the stat box, but he was definitely a force to be reckoned with this season. And maybe that's somebody that you move on from, who knows? So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Are you concerned at all that we only have 4 picks, potentially a 5th once the compensatory picks get announced? And, are you worried about picking later in the first round? Do you think they should trade back, acquire more draft capital? Really, more swings of the bat, from what I understand, is usually a more positive approach to the NFL draft as opposing to pushing all your chips in on 1 to 3 guys. And as of right now, we'd be only getting 4 picks, and I don't know if we can do that, especially with no little to no cap space as of this recording, because they're just going to have to make a lot of roster moves in order to even begin to think about tackling the free agent market. So the NFL draft is a very long, long way away. When the time comes around, I will have the new hat for that for this upcoming draft. It just doesn't even depend on the design. I just hope it's not ugly, but it's going to be added to the collection. So let me know what you guys think. That's going to do it for me. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.